Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. It's 6:21 a.m. and it's time to shine a spotlight on our children.
Child protection is one of the most sensitive and complex issues in our society today. And at the heart of it lies a difficult balance between protecting children from harm while preserving the integrity of families. It's a balance that the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago must strike every single day. So this morning, joining us are attorneys Riane Riley and Brandon Woods from the Children's Authority to discuss when and how the authority intervenes in the lives of children at risk of abuse and neglect. They will talk to us about the use of custody, care, and protection orders. So we are welcoming them to the Now Morning Show. Thank you so much for joining us to have this conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Very necessary. And to kick things off, to give context, Riane, if you were to describe the role that the Children's Authority plays in these sorts of conversations, specifically when it comes to protecting children, how do you define it? Or, well, explain that.
So the main role that the Children's Authority have would be to receive and investigate reports of any form of mistreatment, neglect, or just any form of mistreatment with respect to children in Trinidad and Tobago. It also extends to investigating circumstances where non-national children have entered Trinidad and Tobago. So we do delve into their circumstances as well. Once we have conducted an investigation and we find that the children are in need of care and protection, we petition the court for certain relevant orders to protect the children.
Now, the types of orders that we can look at, Brandon, could you break those down for us? Because it would sound like they're very wide-ranging,
Sure.
but ultimately trying to reintegrate the family unit. What type of orders can we look at?
So the types of orders are mainly dealt with under Section 25 of the Children's Authority Act. They range from the main one that we apply for would usually relate to care, so they're applications for care orders, which essentially when we receive children into care, we petition the court to have legal care, custody, and control of children vested in us. That would allow us to essentially step into the role of the parents in those situations, and would allow us to smoothly facilitate certain interventions, as Riane would have mentioned earlier. Moving on from that, we have fit person orders, which essentially seek to, again, vest legal care, custody, and control of children into other persons.
Right.
A prerequisite to that would be where the authority has to conduct suitability assessments of these people and present that to the court to allay the court's any fears that the court may have, and to ensure that these persons are fit and suitable to care for children. We have foster care orders, essentially same thing, vesting legal care, custody, and control into foster parents with the authority. Notably as well, we have contribution orders, which are dealt with under Section 39 of the Children's Authority Act. And those would essentially seek to have the parents of the children make certain contributions to the upkeep and maintenance of the children while they are in the care. So it's important because, you know, sometimes you may find that parents may seem to think that they can just put the children under the care of the authority and throw their hands up and say, well, that's it. But there are steps that we can take to ensure that that parental responsibility is maintained.
That is actually relieving, just as a citizen altogether, because it is difficult to, raise a child, and generally upkeep is expensive. So it's also reassuring to know that there is a level of responsibility and accountability that is maintained. You did give us some of the prerequisites or some of the conditions that are looked at for the persons or entities that will be taking care of the children placed in care. Are there specifics when it comes to the children themselves, age limits, or any sort of details that are looked at when determining these children need special care, apart from making a report of some sort? Are there any specifics that we should be looking at?
Certainly, I would say that definitely the circumstances of the children are at the forefront of these considerations, particularly if there are particular needs that the child may have. Without a doubt, the court will have regard to that and make the requisite order. The means of the parents as well will also be considered. So these are some of the factors.
And in terms of the order, could you give us an idea of the duration or time frame? Because these are not intended to be upheld forever, I imagine.
Sure. Excuse me. Sure. So with respect to the duration of the orders, now they can last within 6 months to a year, or until the child attains the age of 18. It is all dependent on the age of the child and the time that the child comes to the attention of the authority and to the attention of the court. Some of the children we have before us come to the attention of the authority in mere months of being born. Some come at the age of 16, 18, sorry, not 18, but close to 18, right? So it depends on the age of the child, and orders could remain until the child has attained the age of 18, based on the circumstances. Yes.
There is so much that is specific to each instance that I'm sure these conversations can go on and on. But I'm glad that we're touching on these things this morning, because it is, again, relieving to know that these support systems exist. Let's talk a little bit about the long-term effects, because we know ultimately the intention is to reintegrate families or parents with their children, families altogether. So long-term effects of these orders on the parents first off, and then their parental rights more specifically.
Sure. The long-term effect would be that the rights of the parents are suspended. So once the authority has a care order for a child, the rights of the parents are suspended. But they do have the right to come before the court and have their day in court per se. So they have a right to be heard. The authority would serve them with the application that we had petitioned the court for, and they have the right to come before the court and put forward their position. They also have the right to legal representation. So the court would inform the parent that they have the opportunity to have legal representation or legal counsel act on their behalf. Some of the parents, they decide not to, but others decide to. So they can either defend the authority's application or come to court, admit, and cooperate with the recommendations that the authority would put forward with a view to reintegration.
That's really pleasant to hear that there are parents who will work together with the Children's Authority, because realistically it is difficult. And I think that most don't think of the support that the Children's Authority gives at all. So that kind of juxtapositions it in my mind as more of a support and helping hand, if you will, rather than the Children's Authority coming down on me. Now, I'm wondering, just out of curiosity, would you say that it happens more often than not, that parents do cooperate with the authority, or is there a great deal of difficulty?
Yes, yes. Most of the parents cooperate with the authority.
I'm relieved to hear that. Now, in terms of maintaining the child's stability, I imagine that's top priority, but it looks different for each child. Can we describe some of the efforts that the Children's Authority will take to make sure that that is maintained, perhaps?
Yes, of course. So we have, well, obviously our lovely, hard-working case management team that are really our eyes and ears on the ground. They conduct a lot of monitoring of the children. This may range from telephone calls. They may go in person to inspect and to have interviews with the children, so we get a good feel of how the children are acclimatizing to the environment. As it relates to interventions, according to the feedback from the relevant case management officers, they can put forward their recommendations to have the children have some sort of interventions so that they can further acclimatize and their well-being is secured in that regard.
When you talk about those interventions specifically, are we talking about moving, relocating?
Not but mainly regarding counseling. They would have a lot of counseling, depending on the circumstances.
Would you like to add?
Yes, please. So following from what Brandon would have said, in terms of the interventions, we do ensure that the children continue their schooling. So children who are received into the care of the authority, we make sure that if they have to be transferred to another school, they receive the school transfers, or if they continue at the school, we ensure that they continue their schooling. We also ensure that they have medical assessments done. So everything with respect to the holistic care and protection of the child in terms of medical, in terms of psychological interventions, we do all of that.
And to add as well, we do as well try to maintain a level of familial connection. So they are, of course, insofar as the child's best interests are not being compromised, we'll allow access for the parents to the children accordingly to maintain that stability.
Right. Underlying theme of reuniting the family continues in every facet of this, and that is definitely beautiful to hear. Now, in terms of the role of the parent, it seems relatively obvious because they're still going to be in some way, shape, involved, even though their rights are, their obligations perhaps may be suspended. I think in terms of determining the child's best interest, there's a lot of conversation there. And I wonder what other methods, because you talked about counseling and physical visits, are there any other methods or other investigations that are done perhaps on the family side that help with that? I'm very curious.
Of course. So when we do investigations, it's a holistic investigation. So it's not only the family, but we also interview community members. We go to the children's school and any other person who would have had some form of interaction or is related to the child and the circumstance. So we do a thorough investigation. So the entire family unit would be a part of our investigations and the recommendations coming out of our investigations.
And that leads me to ask how members of the public and professionals, like their teachers, their doctors, will play a role in that. You've touched on it a little bit, but to be specific, how they help the authority when they suspect a child is at risk is probably where we can start, and then how they play into the role of continuing those healthy and stable relationships. Yeah?
Sure. With respect to teachers or any person who is in a position of trust for children. So a position of trust would be a person such as a teacher, a social worker, a doctor. If a child informs that person that they are at risk or have been abused in any form, they have a responsibility under the mandatory reporting to report to the police that abuse of the child, as well as to report it to the authority. It can be done anonymously, or you can prefer to give details. Right? So once the authority is advised of the report, we take the necessary steps in terms of investigations. If you asked not to be named in our report, we do not name you in the report.
Of course. And in that case, as you are speaking, the contact numbers for the Children's Authority are on your screen right now, so that if you may want to make any sort of report or even inquire, because you may not be clear on the conditions, on the circumstance, you can reach them via a number of ways, including the hotlines that are on your screen right now. We are encouraging you to use them, because it's all about making sure that we take care of the children. We have touched deeply on the actual custody order and those specifics, but care is such a broad-ranging topic. Let's get into some of the common misconceptions people have about the authorities' powers and these orders, because ultimately care is at the core, but it's defined differently for each person. What are some big misconceptions you'd like to dispel this morning, Riane?
Major misconception would be that parents have this hands-off approach. So when a child is received into the care of the authority, they do a hands-off. But with respect to the contribution order, if the authority conducts a means test and the parent is able to financially assist the child, even though the child is in the care of the authority, we can petition the court for the parent to pay a sum into the authority's account to assist with the care and welfare of the child. So that's basically the most the most common misconception. Yes,
I'm not gonna lie. In the back of my mind, like I said, was relieved to hear that parents can actively and do actively play a role in making sure they support that child. I think when we consider the ultimate goal to be reuniting that child with their family, we understand that these things shouldn't actually be the assumption, that there should be involvement, that we can all play a part, and that we can get support through the Children's Authority. I really appreciate this conversation this morning, but it is just the tip of the iceberg. So before we close, Brandon, would you like to add anything or remind the persons of anything specifically when it comes to custody care and protection orders from the Children's Authorities? And
nothing really comes to mind. I just wanted to add with what Riane was answering, because it was an important question to answer in relation to misconceptions people may have. A lot of people may seem to think that our goal is just to remove children. It's never our intention to disrupt families. I mean, it's a tough job to have to step in and intervene and witness the high emotions. I could only imagine how the case management officers, the eyes and ears on the ground, feel being at the forefront. But it's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. And of course, the children's best interests are always our guiding principle. So insofar as the best interests are being secured and the parents are making steps toward rectifying or remedying these situations at home, however they so can, it is our goal to try and reintegrate, and we actively move toward reintegrating children with their families. So it's never our intention to disrupt, but always to act in their interests and reintegrate as necessary.
It is the Children's Authority, so the children are the focus. And this morning we say thank you to Riane Riley and Brandon Woods, attorneys, joining us this morning to give us insight on custody, care and protection orders, when and where the authority intervenes, and how we can play a part in making sure that our children are safe and loved. Lady, gentlemen, thank you for joining us once more. We know we'll see you again, but for now we're taking a break here on the Now Morning Show and coming back with even more information for you after these messages.
Parents of our nation have got an obligation, that's to take proper care of their child.